Good morning, everyone. My name is Raina Wells. On behalf of Ontario Media Development Corporation, I'm pleased to welcome you to the first in our series of 4 digital dialogue breakfasts. I'm sure that many of you know that OMDC is an agency whose mandate is to build Ontario's creative economy through a range of innovative programs and funding for the book and magazine publishing, film and television, music, and interactive digital media industries. We're proud that Ontario has a strong track record of support for our creative industries and that OMDC is a key part of that support. At these breakfast sessions, we're continuing the conversation that we started at our annual Digital Dialogue conferences. I'd especially like to thank PwC for its generous support of this series and of the conferences. Keep an eye out for the invitations to register for the other breakfasts. The next one is November 29th. And if you're not able to be here in person, you can see any of the sessions on OMDC's YouTube channel. I noticed some of you wrote down November 29th. I'll tell you the next one after that is March 26th, and then May 28th is the 4th. Also mark your calendars for this year's full-day Digital Dialogue Conference, which will be held on January 29th. 2013. This morning, we'll hear from a panel of industry experts about the keys to making the best pitch. After the panel, we should have a bit of time for some more networking and another cup of coffee, so please do stay if you can. Our moderator this morning is Lisa Coleman. Lisa is a partner in PwC's Audit and Assurance Group and part of the firm's Technology, Communications, Entertainment, and Media practice. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Coleman.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome this morning to our dialogue. And we do very much want this to be a dialogue, so we do welcome questions. So what we wanted to do today is we put together a little bit of structure at the beginning, and then we wanted to leave a lot of room at the end to ask questions from the audience to the 3 panelists. So what I wanted to do is first introduce our panelists. We're very happy today to have a good cross-section of the types of avenues you would look to get the money. And as we like to say, you gotta follow the money. So I'm gonna go in order of my far right. So the first is Andrew. He's from RBC, and as he would say, he's the banker. Andrew works in the RBC group that specializes in entertainment and media companies, from very small early stage companies to the larger companies in our entertainment and media space. They do any type of financing you can think of, from the production financing to the more complex financing that you would see for some of our media companies that are either capital intensive or not. Then I've got Kim is the next person. She's from OMDC, and as you know, we're at an OMDC breakfast, but Kim specializes in the digital media area. And I thought the most interesting thing from her bio is that she was instrumental in starting what we would all recognize as the OMDC Interactive Digital Media Fund. So the fund that I'm sure many of you in the room have applied to. She's going to talk about what are the key things to really focus on when you make an application to the OMDC in order to get those tax credits that we all look forward to receiving as E&M companies. And then I've got Ray Brooks. So Ray Brooks is an angel, and he asked us to define what an angel is this morning, so we all had our own definitions, but I'll let him describe what an angel investor is. Ray has invested in this space for many, many years and has probably heard a lot of good and maybe not so good stories. So he's going to talk about what is intriguing for him as an angel investor. So we have the full gamut of people today, from the angels that would invest in the early stage companies through to the bankers and OMDC, all people that we look to in this industry to help us be successful. So what I'm going to ask each of them to do is I asked them to put together their top 5 things that they would say are the most important areas for you to focus on if you're doing a pitch. And for each of them, they've put together their top 5 areas to focus on based on who they are within this industry and community. So we're going to start with Andrew. And I love his joke. I'll let you read it.
Thanks, Lisa. So apparently I don't follow directions very well. We were asked to put together 5 points on what to do. I'm really starting things off with what not to do, and oftentimes, for those of you that can't see the comic strip here, it's two people talking about when they're hoping to monetize Twitter, and it's right at the point where the number of Twitter users actually exceeds the world's population, and quite often, you know, not exactly like this, but we do get business plans that aren't really congruent. The other thing is, on the next slide, Lisa, is couldn't contain myself to 5 points, so I've actually got 6 here. But I really tried to summarize things as, you know, what does your banker want to hear? So I think the overarching theme on the panel this morning is to really tailor your pitch to your audience. So you're either pitching a product or a service, and you really need to be succinct, so don't go on and on. I think that's a key message that you'll probably hear across the panel this morning. The other thing is the target market. Oftentimes, and this goes back to being succinct, it's, you know, we're getting data pulled from CanSim, you know, very high level market data. We know which, you know, industry subsectors are growing and why you want to be active in there. The other thing is the revenue model. So, you know, I was chatting with Ray this morning, and I thought this is a key point. Quite often, companies will come to us and say, but, you know, but we got a tax credit. Banks don't really finance tax credits. I mean, we do, but we finance companies. So we're looking to deal with the company itself, understand management, the key players, what the strategy is. And to that point, really interested about the team. So not just the direct management team, the key people to execute on the business plan, but also who's involved with your board. You know, who are your advisors? If you don't have some, ask those around you. I mean, there's a lot of more well-established individuals that are looking to give back to the industry. So reach out. I think you'd be quite surprised. And the other thing is, you know, this is, you might see it as a shameless plug, but, you know, I think we're really interested in who your banker is, who's your lawyer, who's your accountant. And that really goes to speak to, you know, if you're in the content creation space, you know, have you protected your intellectual property? If that's the key to your business, you need to make sure that you're protected. If, you know, that goes to errors and omissions as well, if it's a production finance or production that you're looking to complete. The other thing is, and this is like a huge, I think, mistake that a lot of companies make, is that they say, you know, we're the only one operating in this space, and this is really on the digital media or IT side of things. You know, no one else is doing what we're doing. That's not really a good thing, because if no one else is doing it, it's probably not a good idea. Or you're just, you're not willing to accept that there is competition. You should know who your competition is and be able to articulate why you're doing it better or different than them. So I thought that was a key point. And the last point that I couldn't really contain or cut out of my presentation was funding. So how has the company been capitalized to date? You should be able to articulate that, whether that's been, you know, just equity that you've put in yourself, if you've brought in an angel like Ray, if it's been bank debt, private equity money, and you should be able to articulate how you plan on growing the company. So if you have milestones on how to execute, you should also be cognizant of what different types of debt and equity are required at the different stages. So I think that's something that's really important from my perspective.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm now going to ask Kim to speak.
Sorry, guys. I'm just so everybody knows, I'm actually not checking my email. I have some notes on my phone, and I realized when I was on a panel about a year ago that I think everybody thought I was checking my email while I was on the panel. So
You're just tweeting.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to speak to you today from the funder's perspective, because that's the chair that I sit in. So I think it's a little bit of a different perspective than my other two panelists today, but I think there are some really universal themes, regardless of who you're pitching to, that carry across different industries and different audiences. So, and it's interesting, as I was listening to Andrew speak, there were a lot of things that he was saying that I'm thinking, oh gosh, that's exactly what I said. So true confessions, we actually didn't share our top 5 tips in advance, so I had no idea what Andrew had in his top 5, and I have no idea what Ray has in his either. So it'll be interesting to see whether Ray is on point with some of the stuff that Andrew and I are highlighting as key areas that you should be aware of if you're making a pitch. So I think Andrew mentioned that it's really important to have a very clear pitch. And that is the thing that I sort of led off with. And much like Andrew, I also started with something that you're not supposed to do, and that is don't bury the lead. It's really important to make sure that you're selling your project very clearly, and being clear also means being very concise. I've seen pitches that are this thick that come in writing that are awful. I've seen pitches that are this small that come in writing that are brilliant. So size doesn't necessarily matter. You want to make sure that you get all the information in that's key and that's important, and that you don't put extraneous information in that isn't relevant to the review process. If you do have a large pitch, where you can, and I'm speaking about written pitches, use executive summaries and highlight the key points, the points that you want to draw attention to that are actually key selling features for your product or for your company. The next 2 points are somewhat related. It's really important to remember that a pitch is a sales job. You're selling yourself, and you're also selling your product. So I've seen pitches come in that do one really well and not the other really well. And you have to remember that you need to do both. So as a representative of a funding agency, I don't want to just know what your project is. I want to know that you can execute on your project. So it's really important in your pitch to me that you are actually selling your company, that you're selling your key strengths. And you also do need to sell your product. You need to tell me why it's a good product. And you need to tell me why it's a good product and why it's a good product for my particular fund. So sales is a big thing. And one of the other key sort of elements of selling a product, and I tell this to everybody whenever I get a call from somebody who says, do you have any advice for me on putting an application into the Interactive Digital Media Fund? I always tell people to poke holes in their pitch, because that's what somebody who's reviewing it is going to do. As much as I'd like to tell you that juries review projects and look for reasons to fund them, they are more inclined to fixate on negative things. So it's really important that you take the time to do that and you poke the holes in your pitches, or in your pitch and in your project. Where are the weaknesses? Acknowledge them in advance and make sure that you actually are providing a resolution for them. If you don't acknowledge them, the natural assumption of anybody reviewing your material is that you're hiding something or that you don't have an answer. So if there's a particular challenge that your project faces or that your company faces, make sure that you're really clear about that up front and that you actually provide some kind of a solution for that particular challenge. It may seem really basic, but read the guidelines. It's, if you're applying to a fund, a funding agency, it is amazing to me how many people don't read the guidelines. They don't actually consider what is required in the application. It is very, we give you the tools that you need to put in a strong application together. We are asking you for everything that we need to see. Everything we need to evaluate your project is outlined in our guidelines and in our application form. So if you follow those instructions and you follow that blueprint, it's going to lead you to a good pitch. And it's amazing to me how many people don't do that, don't do those basic things. The other thing to sort of keep in mind is that one size doesn't fit all. So every funding agency is going to have very specific requirements, and anybody you're pitching to is going to have specific requirements. You need to tailor your pitch. So what's unique about that particular funding agency? What are they looking for specifically, and how do you craft your pitch to actually work for that agency? You know, again, they're universals, but what Andrew may be looking for could be slightly different than what I'm looking for. We were having a conversation prior to the panel about, you know, I said to Andrew, do you take pitches? He's like, yes, I take pitches, but I'm really looking for the business and marketing plan stuff. I'm really looking to see if the project has commercial potential. That's very different than pitching to a funding branding agency, where there is a little bit more of an interest in looking at and evaluating the creative. So you need to make sure that your pitch is actually tailored to the audience that is actually reviewing that documentation.
Thanks, Kim. My first question is, everyone has talked about succinctness, engagement, and selling yourself and your product, which for companies in the media space, that can be very interesting. What I wanted to ask the panelists are two questions. One is, and I think I heard Kim say she's seen 1,500 pitches, which sounds incredible. What I want to ask is, what would you say to someone they need to do differently if they had only the opportunity to give you a written pitch versus an oral pitch? Question number one. And the second question is, if you were given 3 minutes versus 20 minutes, how should your presentation change? So I'll open it up to the, and maybe I'll ask Kim to start since she sees mostly written.
I think it's really important, and actually it's a point that I was hoping to bring up, so thank you for the opportunity. I'd forgotten. I think it's really important when you are pitching to recognize what your strengths are. So if you are blessed enough to have a team, and your strength is actually the written pitch and you're a horrible public speaker, hand that public speaking opportunity over to someone on your team who can actually deliver on it. So you need to sort of put your best foot forward and put your best team member forward, depending on the pitching opportunity.
Andrew, do you want to answer the written versus oral? Because you probably see more oral presentations.
Yeah, I'd say the oral presentations are a little bit more informal. It's, you know, meeting up with someone over a coffee or in the office and talking about their business. The point that struck me was, you know, if you wanted to tailor the conversation from 3 minutes to 20 minutes, I don't think the pitch should take 20 minutes. I think it should take 3 minutes regardless. It shouldn't be more than 3 minutes. And the rest of the time should just be a question and answer period. It's about exploring and, you know, like you said, kind of poking holes in things. And you should have the answers ready, because I think that's, you know, that's a real benefit to having a face-to-face or oral pitch.
Ray, do you want to add some insight? Because I know as an angel you probably see written and then you funnel, and perhaps at least that's what we did the other day with MLA, is we saw a ton of written pitches and then filtered it down to 2 that actually got to do the oral presentation.
I do a lot of work with both. I expect that there's going to be a lot of supporting documentation. I expect it to have been filtered before I see it, and I'm very used to an elevator pitch. 2-3 minutes, the length of time it takes me to get from the bottom of the building to the top. You walk in the lift with me and you pitch me. Very used to that, very comfortable with that. But if you engage with me, I can only tell you one thing, which is what I honestly think. And what I always do if I say no is I say why. And I will give you the opportunity to fix what I think the problem is. I'll also give you an opportunity to come back and tell me why I'm wrong. Because I'm human. I do make mistakes many times, and I enjoy being wrong, providing you tell me how I can improve my performance, just as I will give you the same advice. But if it takes 20 minutes, it's because I'm giving you 20 minutes and you've persuaded me you're worth 20 minutes. So don't be surprised if I cut things short, because I like simple, direct, and to the point. Does that help?
So I think I'm glad what came out of that was the elevator pitch. I've seen a lot of presentations too where someone will have 2 minutes and they'll come in with 50 slides. And they'll say, don't worry, I'll just flick through the slides. You know, number one disaster is to have way too many slides. At the end of the day, you have lost your audience if you haven't said what you need to say within the first minute. And I liked Ray's comment in saying, why should I give you the money? Because you can guarantee it's not the first story he's heard that day or that week. And so you've really got to explain within a minute why you are someone that these 3 should engage with. So now I'll open it up to the audience for questions. And I see a roving microphone at the back, or you can just stand up so that we can, yes.
Okay, so you told us what the top 5 things are, top 5 tips. So let's go and tell us the best pitch you've ever heard from each one. I'd like to hear each and every one of you, if you just thought about it. What's the best pitch you've ever heard? So that it sort of captures, you know, the attention, and you got in the elevator, Ray, with the guy, and they're going up, and it just knock you off your list, knock the socks off. You know, same thing for Kim and Andrew. It's sort of will open up maybe our way of thinking about pitch as well.
And probably explain why, too, would be great.
Yeah.
So what's the best pitch? And we talked about this question. Obviously, they're going to have to hide the confidentiality. But what is the best pitch they've heard and why? And I'd be interested in, on the flip side, what was the most disastrous pitch you heard and why? Because it's always nice to go to extremes.
Sure, I can kick that off. So actually, the best pitch that I did here was actually a technology company. It was a 10-page presentation. And the individual that I met with went through things in 3 minutes, about 3 minutes, 4 minutes maybe. And the thing that I really liked was they had really identified what their strengths were. They had spoken about who the key talent was, where the holes were. They had actually asked for help. Can you introduce me to someone else? And they actually showed the proceeds of how additional funding and debt would actually fuel the business. So they had, it was kind of like a stacked chart. So it wasn't unrealistic growth expectations, it was realistic growth. And you could see if we raise this much money, this is what we do. We hire 2 more staff. You know, we win one marquee client. If we raise this much, then we can double it. So I think it was very realistic, it was very honest, both in terms of growth as well as shortcomings, and it was succinct to the point. It was great.
What about the most disastrous?
50+ page. I mean, there's too many to name. I mean, it's you can almost expect it. And I know it sounds bad to say, but you know, if you're handing something over to someone and it's 50 pages and you kind of just smile and say, you know, have a read. I'm really proud of it. You know. Tell me about your business. You know, nobody really has time to go through 50 pages. There's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of just raw market data that's not really important to your company or to the project that you're working on. So I think that's probably the biggest mistake that you can fall into. If it's too long, people just won't hear what you have to say. So that's the first thing you need to do.
Kim?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can give you a really specific example. And much like Andrew, I think there are a lot more really bad pitches that I've seen than really good pitches. What makes a pitch stand out for me is a pitch that can. It sounds shocking, but most people can't describe their product to me. It's amazing to me. They will send in, you know, a 1-page description, but it doesn't convey what the product is. So for me, a good pitch starts there with a really great product description that actually is not just concise, but also clear and actually tells me something about what the product will look like on the back end. And then from there, having something that will because as a funding agency, I mean, we look at a lot of different things, but one of the big things that's part of the evaluation for us is a business and marketing plan. So the pitches that have really good product descriptions and are very clear about what that project is going to be on the back end when it's completed, and a pitch that has a strong business and marketing plan where there is a revenue model there is something that, as a funder, that is very attractive to me. Bad pitches, I know Lisa asked us to think about this, and I did think about one that really kind of irritated me, and it kind of speaks to one of the points that I had spoken about before, and that is to customize your documentation. I got a pitch a couple of years ago from a company that had actually just taken the pitch that they put into another funding agency and just shoved it into the OMDC. So all of the documentation said "Dear so-and-so" and was addressed to an entirely different funding agency. And it's, you know what, it does color your perception of the project when you're looking at it. And it happens even going so far, if you even sort of delete the names and substitute somebody else's name in and put my name in, I can generally tell if it's the same documentation because I know what each of the funding agencies are looking for. So I can see echoes of the other funding agencies' requirements in the documentation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a nice pitch to receive.
Ray?
Thank you for the question. The same pitch was the worst and the best. It was the worst because when I first received it, it was a fabulous vision, and I bought into the vision, but then when it came to the execution, there was no execution. So I very succinctly explained to the person pitching that their pitch sucked, and that it sucked in these ways because it didn't have a management team, it didn't tell me how the management team was going to implement what the strategy was, because they didn't have a strategy, they just had a vision. And I didn't leave it there, because I'm an interfering old bugger, so what I got, it was one of my colleagues to interface with that person and work with them, to mentor them. The consequence was unexpected for me, because I had to sit on a panel which was a big conference, and I was surprised when this same person walked on the stage and pitched again. But this was 8 weeks later. They'd obviously done an awful lot of work, and this time it was pitch perfect. And that's not my view, that is the view of all of the panel, because this person won the event and got the award, the prize. So that was both the worst pitch and the best pitch, and the message is it's all about getting mentoring, getting support to fix what the problems are. And every pitch has got a problem. And part of my role, I think, is to try and find a way to get those problems fixed. Thank you.
And I think that's a really good point that Ray has made, is before you're going to do a pitch, really reach out to your network and look at who is there to mentor you. I recently saw a pitch that, you know, as Ray had started out, you guys are the creative side. The creative avenue, or the creative aspect of their product was loud and clear. It had great potential. But then, you know, I'm the accountant, so I ask the simple questions like, how are you going to make money? What is the business model? And so, like Ray just said, when they actually did their pitch, they both had the creative, the excitement at the front end, and then they spoke to the investors, where they had their business model very, very succinct and laid out for the guys that want the rate of return and are the numbers guys. So getting mentoring before you do a pitch, I think, is great advice.
And sorry, you can also get mentoring from a funding agency too. I
Yes.
mean, that's the beautiful thing about funding agencies, is we're there to help you. So if you have questions, call in advance, because I'm happy to help, and I know my counterparts with other funding agencies in the industry, either within the interactive industry or outside of the interactive industry, are generally happy to help as well. We want to see good pitches come in.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kim. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Yep. I just wanted to take a step back and ask a question about the nature of what motivates you, or what the criteria are in some ways. I mean, with Andrew, I would imagine that, you know, you're a bank, so obviously you're looking to give out a loan, and you want people that you want to, you know, assess the ability to pay back.
Yeah, hopefully. Yes.
Hopefully. With Kim, I guess with the OMDC, you're supporting the cultural industry, and you want to support good projects. You also want, I guess, people to make money at some point and support the industry as a whole. But with Ray, what I'm asking is, what motivates you? Like, are you looking, because when you came and you introduced and you asked us, you said, you want to support us because we create magic. Is it a project that will wow you? Is it a project that will make you money? Or is it both? Or would you support a project because you truly believe in it, it makes no money, but you are proud to be associated with the project?
Yes. What is
You should
art?
talk.
What is art? Can you tell me?
Art is something that inspires you and, you know, makes life worth living, I think. at the end of the day?
I think it changes my perspective. If I see this thing and I go, wow, and my eyes cross and I don't get it, and I suddenly think, well, actually, I see it. And for the first time, I realize I have a new vision, a new perspective. I think that is part of what is art. Certainly Picasso's done that to me a number of times, but as does Frank Gehry. But that's what I like. That's what I want. That's what I crave. It's something I can't define, I can't explain, but it's like pornography. I know it when I see it. And I like to see art. Okay? And that's your magic. That's why I do what I do. And that's why others I'm involved in do what we do. Because partly it's magic. It happens to make money. At least washes its face.
Do you want, Kim or Andrew, do you want to address the question also?
Sure. I think Lolita kind of hit the nail on the head. And as I mentioned earlier, we do give you the blueprint to build your pitch. We do tell you what needs to go in the application that you're sending in to us. Not only do we do that, but we also give you the evaluation criteria. So we're actually really clear in what we're looking for. And I mean, you've kind of summed up the main key points. But I mean, for us, evaluating a project, it is a score-based evaluation system, and we have very specific criteria that we're measuring the projects and the pitches against.
Yeah, and I can speak to what you mentioned as well. I mean, I think there's, I think the default fallback, and I've probably persisted it today, is that you just think of the bank as handing out loans, and that's true. When we do hand out loans or issue loans, the bank has a scarce amount of capital, and we're hoping to get repaid, and you know, we can't fund every company. But at the same time, the bank is also, and specifically a boutique group like the one at RBC is, you know, we're focused on the industry, and we also provide access to capital. So we'll be upfront and state that, you know, if the funding that you're looking for really isn't debt, you're looking for equity, then it is connecting you with the right source of funding. And you know, we've been there for 30 years, and we've got a great network, and we're happy to introduce you to the right people. At the end of the day, we're still a bank, and we're still happy to take your deposits as well.
I think the most interesting thing from that is, you know, it is known in the digital media space that creativity is both from the product and from the revenue model. So we're always looking for creativity on earning revenue because it's not proven at this stage. And so the more you can explain how you're going to earn your revenue and what you're looking at from a creative perspective, I think you're also going to engage the audience. So it may not be proven, but that's the art.
Yes, my question is about the 3 to 7 minute oral pitch in front of an audience and a committee or whatever, a panel. You have a team. Where do you see the emphasis lying? Is it, yes, you have to get the idea across, but do you want to have the financial plan presented? Do you want the long-term strategy? What's the balance in the pitch, in a team pitch?
So how many minutes did you say you had? 2 minutes?
Let's say 3 to 7.
3.
Oh, and you also have a trailer. Not that I've been in this position.
Well, it's got, for me personally, it's got to be the vision first. Persuade me you've got a vision. Communicate the vision. And then you just have to mention that you do have a management team, you have a track record, this is the team, this is the experience, and you can stop.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize in that situation, there's nothing wrong with having a leave behind. Like a 3-minute pitch, you gotta keep it to the key points, the vision, and as Ray's mentioned, you know, what are your strengths? What is the strength of the actual company? Just to convince the audience, or to sort of get it, I guess, attract your audience's attention, and so that they believe in the project and believe in you. But a leave behind, I would suggest, in that situation. There's nothing wrong with that.
And Kim, I'm imagining when you look at written documents, within 3 minutes, you're probably reviewing very quickly what you're seeing in front of you. So I think you also talked about appendices and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 minutes when I review a pitch document is probably you can get a sense of it within 3 minutes, for sure. I mean, I don't please don't get me wrong, I don't only spend 3 minutes on your applications this big, we read all of them, but you get a sense within the first 3 minutes, and generally most of the time that gut feeling in that first 3 minutes is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, you don't really need to have the financials or speak to the financials. I mean, if it's early stage, you're guessing anyways. Just tell us, you know, what the plan is. How do you plan to monetize it? I'd shift the emphasis away from maybe top line to, are you going to break even? Because that's ultimately important. So vision first, speak to the revenue or to the profitability model, and you know, leave behind obviously is a great idea, or you know, we'll follow up with you.
I think the other thing that's really important with your vision is what is the differentiator? Because remember, these guys have seen a ton of these, and if you do start out saying, we're the best, we're the biggest, and we're the only, you've probably turned them off. So when you're giving the vision, because in their mind, they'll be thinking about all the other competitors or people in your space, because they'll know who's in your space. So the differentiator is really important to get out up front. Why is your product different from others that will be in that space already? Yes. Can you speak up? Sorry. Oh, there's the mic.
You mentioned that every pitch has a hole in it. So I'd like to know typically what are the holes that you've found, and atypically what are holes?
That there is no typical. We're all different. Each pitch is different. Each person that's pitching is different, and it's always fresh to me. So I don't think there's a common mistake, to be honest. But I do recommend that you go through a workshop. I recommend that you practice. And if you can, bring somebody in from outside that knows what they're doing and is prepared to help you. Mary Lou, could you stand up, please? If you want to know who I would recommend that you would use, Mary Lou is an independent consultant who will come and work with you to fix your pitch. Is that right, Mary Lou? Thank you. And I've no idea what she charges. And she's not paying me a commission. All I'm saying is I know her, I trust her, and I would expect that anybody that took her services would benefit from it, as a suggestion. Okay.
I think there was a question over here. Yeah.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question about what is probably obviously one of the most important parts of any project, and that is the communication component. I think a lot of folks in this creative world, they get kind of confused by the term transmedia. So I would like to know, what does transmedia mean to you, and how much weight does it carry when somebody provides a pitch that has a transmedia component? And the reason I'm asking this is because when we have gone through different funding agencies, you know, transmedia can make up 48 different recognized components of communication. When you reach out to a funding agency and you say, well, what needs to be included in my transmedia pitch? Nobody has an answer, okay? Nobody has a, when you reach out to say, can you give me an example of a proposal that was placed in front of you that sort of nailed the components that you're looking for, we still don't get an answer on that one. So I'd just like to get your take on that in terms of what you think is important and how you would view the transmedia component of any proposal.
Great question. Who wants to take it first? Ray?
That's a lovely question. I've been wrestling with exactly that question since I first came across the concept. It depends on the original creative project. Can you just suggest a novel that you might like to turn into a movie to me?
Well, you know, we have a project on rage that we'd like to turn into a movie.
Okay.
Okay. And it really a series. And you know, it's a human condition, and it's something that touches everybody in this room and everybody in the world. It has great creative capabilities as well as destructive capabilities.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, so the question is,
how do you turn that into a transmedia thing?
How do you turn? Well, yeah.
Do you want this to be a movie, a TV movie, a Netflix movie? What do you want?
Series.
A TV series. Okay. The standard response would be there would be an expectation that you'd move from the series. If there's an educational component, go speak to the educational boards. I've got the phone numbers and names of the people to talk to in the major education boards in this city. If you can find a way to link your project into their educational curriculum so that they start building their courses next year about your TV series, you've got something, because you've then got a guaranteed audience of a couple 100,000 all by itself in one city. You should then link through that. If you were sensible, you'd say, well, we need a game. Well, I know somebody that can write you a game for that for $50,000. You can then say, well, we need an app as well, or a small game, maybe $50,000. And each one of these elements will have its own cash flow. They're separate parts of the project. I'm now speaking to the accounting side of the equation. So you might need $5 million for the TV series. You can probably get that game done for $500,000, $50K for the app. You should also have a social networking platform. You can white label that. You can easily get that done. I can arrange that for you. In other words, all of a sudden, with no great effort on your part, you begin with a creative something. You've linked through into a circumstance where the educational boards will really make sure that your stuff is paid attention to and over-analysed in the classroom. Maybe not to your benefit, but it will be. But you'll have the eyeballs. And you get the game and you get the app, and all of a sudden you've got a very interesting set of dynamics. You can go to individuals who would finance parts of that. And you just need a management team that can do that. I have yet to meet a management team that can do all of that at once. But if you came to me with a great idea, I'd really like to play with that and see where it could go to. But that's my answer.
Andrew, Kim?
Transmedia is an interesting word. I think transmedia production has been happening for a lot longer than people think it has been, but I think it was called something different, cross-platform content creation. And it's something actually that we've been doing in this country for a really long time, and we've established ourselves as leaders internationally, which is great. I think that a good transmedia production strategy is something that, I mean, and Ray talked about the different components. The different components need to link together and be related. It's also really important, as Ray has pointed out, to recognize where your strengths are, what you're good at, and what you're not good at. So you may have an idea that's coming from a book that you want to turn into a series, but you also want to create a game to go along with that. And it could be a great project. It all links together. It's all coherent. You may not have the skill set to execute on all of those different elements. So it's really important to bring those people, the people that you need to the table in order to be able to execute on all of those different projects. The reality is that you can't do all of these things yourself. You can't be an expert in everything. So bring the right people to the table. That's particularly key for me when I'm looking at a project. And it's something that when I talked about sort of being able to sell yourself with respect to your project, it's one of the things that I hear so many times when we're reviewing projects in our jury meetings. Is the jury says they've got a game component, they don't have a game designer. How are they going to build a game? They've got a programming team, they've got an art team. Where's the game design skill? So make sure you have all of those elements there. That's a big thing for me. The other thing to remember is, depending on your strategy and your approach, in some cases, some of your different sort of transmedia elements may not necessarily be intended to generate revenue and to make a profit for your company. You may be using them as marketing tools. So understanding the distinction between whether it's a product and whether you're using it as a marketing avenue is really key and really important for me, and being able to convey that in the pitch. Both of those are legitimate strategies, but you have to pitch those elements very differently. If you're using an interactive platform as a marketing tool to drive audiences to a TV property, that's very different than using an interactive project that's actually generating revenue for your company.
Not too much to add here, but really transmedia to me is really taking that same piece of IP and using cross-platform delivery. The best examples or the best uses of transmedia is where you're actually embracing the platform that you're using to do something new, not just repackaging something that came from the TV world. It's really engaging people if it's in a game. And ultimately, I'd like to reiterate what was already said on the panel, is that, know your limitations. If you're not a game designer, you can get one. I mean, there's a number of development shops that you can contact within the GTA. The same goes for apps as well. It's just about coming up with a clear strategy, and again, knowing your limitations and how to get around it.
So I think from what you've heard here, transmedia is important, but recognizing where you use it within how you're going to use it and where you're going to use it is key, again, to your pitch. Don't oversell yourself on transmedia, but also recognize that it's important for many things within a business. So whether it's engagement, marketing, or actually earning revenue, again, it goes to being succinct as to what you want to do and how you're going to do it. Yeah, you had your hand up next.
I was just wondering if any of you guys were more likely to fund a company if it's had kind of a long proven track record, or if a new budding company is just as likely to get funding from you.
Yeah, so a good question. So it comes back to probably the team. And what do you look for in the team? Are you nervous when you see a team that is brand new to the game, or a team that has had experience?
I'm sure you've heard the saying before, people bet on the jockey, not on the horse. It's what people on the team have done, even if it's at another company. What was their contribution? How did they, you need to quantify what they did when they were in a different role, and what they're going to bring to your team.
We have very specific requirements with the Interactive Digital Media Fund with respect to startups. It doesn't mean that we won't support a startup, but we do want to see that the principals have a track record in the space. I think that it is possible for a startup organization to convince us that you can execute on the project, but it is a challenge, and it's a competitive world, and looking at your company track record for us is actually worth 15 points on a scale of 100 when we're doing scoring and evaluation. And the fact of the matter is, a company that's executed and that has a long history of delivering products and delivering good products, there's a greater sort of level of comfort that that project or that company is going to be able to execute on the project that they're pitching to us. So it's possible, but it can be a challenge. It's an uphill battle, but that's not to say that we haven't supported startups. We have supported startups and had huge success supporting first-time applicants and startup companies that are actually being led by principals who have strong and long track records in the industry.
I'm looking at somebody that looks to me to be impossibly young. Congratulations. And I would probably suggest to you that your team, and I assume there will be others of the same sort of age, lots of enthusiasm, lots more energy than me, lots more talent than me. I love all of that, but I might like to bring somebody that's got a little bit of grey hair in with you, so that they can make certain that you avoid all the pitfalls that experience provides. Because after you've been through one or two painful experiences, you learn to avoid them, hopefully. So I'd actually try and create a balanced team in that sense.
And so we've seen a lot of advisory councils or people that are there from an advisory perspective. And so when I've seen people do pitches where the management team is young and perhaps hasn't been there, make sure you actually talk about who's advising you and who you have as your mentor, because that is where you can score the points on the experience and the people that are going to help you try to avoid the pitfalls. Yeah, I think there was a question up here. No? Okay, the very back.
Question for Ray. It's basically on, but what advice would you give to somebody trying to decide whether they should actually get funding? You said we're all offering our businesses. It's a full-time job, and raising money takes time. So you've got a business, you're going along. When you decide, funding could take you to the next level, but there are risks. And what questions should we be asking of a funder? You seem like a nice guy. There are some funders who are, maybe not so nice. And again, even after you get the money, what are the changes to know what's going on? What questions should we ask of the funder in terms of reporting and roadmaps? And if you missed the first one, are you done? Or that kind of what's the process going forward in terms of meeting goals, adjusting on the fly, that sort of thing.
What I'd like to be able to say is that there exists a one-stop shop. You walk in through the door, you say, I need this much money, you get the money, you go and do it. We do not have that in this city yet. That's the star system, that's the studio system down in Hollywood. It's actually all about creative projects getting funded and getting done quickly and economically. And I don't think we're there yet. But I've already suggested that we should meet around the table here because I think we could begin to try and develop the one-stop shop idea so that if you bring a great idea into any of us, the others can engage all of us so that we can do stuff that's required for you. Because I repeat, I don't think anybody on this panel wants you to be great at doing the accounting, the tax, all the management stuff. We want you to be great creators of content. If that's why you exist, for me at least. So I'd like to encourage that, and I'd like to take away the challenges of being the great manager on top of that. I completely agree with Andrew's point that it's a great jockey. But we know people, we can get the jockeys in for you. We need you to do the creative stuff. But that's my view, and not everybody agrees with me. And I'm not that nice, I do have teeth. I can bite.
So our time is up. I really appreciate the audience's the questions, and I also thank Andrew, Kim, and Ray for coming today and sharing with us some very key points.
Can I just add one thing? If you really want to have this workshop, Raina, are you in the room? Raina, could you, thank you, could you all say to this lady that you want that workshop? We will try and arrange it. Marilou, I think I'd like you to work with her to arrange this. Would you do that? How much did you pay to be here this morning? Nothing? Zero? Now, you see, that business model sucks. We'll work on that. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Yes.